All right, Ron, we're live.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the marathon Q&A session. This is where you get to pick my brain, and there's still something left up there for you to pick, I think. So this is all about getting your questions answered. We got a ton of them. You're looking at Nick here on the left. He's going to be asking them. He's the one that set this up. And you don't even want to know where he and John Duck and families are today. Why don't you go ahead and tell them, Nick?
If you look behind me here, this isn't one of those virtual backgrounds or anything. We're actually, this is real. We're in the Florida Keys in Isla Mirada.
Isla Mirada. Okay. Yeah, I've been there. I went diving there once.
It's beautiful here.
Yeah. So you guys are down there all week and you're sharing one house, right?
Yeah. Plenty of room for all of us, so it's nice.
And then I just heard they haven't done a lick of fishing and they've been down there all week. So I really don't know why anybody would go to the Keys, not go fishing, but hey. All right.
It's for the kids. Got a nice pool out there and they're having a blast.
Okay. All right. So from what I understand is you're going to read me the questions. Yep. And then I'm going to answer them. And we got a ton of them, right? So
yeah, we got a lot of questions. We did ask people to submit by video. We unfortunately only got 2 of you to submit video questions. The rest of you type in your answers. But
so what's the matter? You guys afraid of what you look like or what? This is your chance to get famous and you blew it, except for a couple of you. All right. Well, I'm sitting here in my home and just ready to get out of here and get back to live events where the real action takes place. And so let's address that here first, Nick.
Okay.
I don't know when our next live event is. I got a feeling it's not going to be that far away. We're doing a quick start school, week after next, I think, right? Virtually?
Right.
And it's got to be a 4-day event this time because we are going to film the ugly house part where Jay and Connor and I are going to go into the houses and film exactly like we do if we were on the bus trip. In fact, even be better because we can take our time and we can get more stuff in and not trucking people around and so forth. So we're actually going to have a 4th day on this virtual training, but it's still not like being out there and being in the houses, but it's the best we can do for now. We will do that live. We have one scheduled for the end of June, but I don't know if we're going to make that or not. Probably not. It's not about getting people in a hotel. We can do that here in Florida. It's about how do you get 50 people on the bus and spread them out, and we haven't figured that one out yet. So we don't have a bus stretcher. So we'll be doing that event live as soon as we can, and you'll be told. We've also got a commercial property boot camp coming up on June the 30th. It will be virtual, and the next one's not till late in the fall, so that one will be live by that time. First time I've ever done a virtual commercial property boot camp. So
it's a lot of firsts right now, Ron.
Yeah, I got that right. In fact, you think about it, everything's changing. The way you do business is changing. The way you think about business is changing. I know it certainly has for us at Global because all of our team is working from home except for those who take vacations. But look, he's even working from vacation location, which you can't do if you're in an office all day.
Right.
So our whole team is working. We got getting a lot done, and it kind of forced us to do business differently. So we'll be doing a lot more virtual stuff than we have been doing in the past. So I hope you guys are staying safe out there. But I'm of the mind that staying safe is one thing, but actually getting out here and getting active and getting back into the world of business is something else. There's a balancing act there, but I think it's time for us to go back to work. So let's go ahead and get started, Nick. You can, somewhere about in the middle, I guess we could take a short break, right?
Sure.
Okay. Well, let's do that. Okay. And if you're watching this today, I assume you know who we are, who I am. If you don't and you stumbled on here by accident, I'm Ron LeGrand. I've been around forever. This is my 38th year or 39th year? I can't remember anymore.
You've been doing it 38 years. You're in your 39th year now.
Oh my God. Oh, gee whiz. All right. Still doing it to this very day. Do a lot of commercial land deals with my mastermind group. Still doing house deals. Still active. Still creating. Still running a couple, 3 different businesses, and So to me, life is normal, except I have to do things out of my home. And now we're here in Florida. We can go out in restaurants and eat right now. So that's the only important thing. We can get to go out and eat right now. All right, fire away, sir.
All right. Well, let me bring up one of our video questions first.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, Ron. It's Philly Dave calling from Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty. So since I live in a tri-state area, some of the leads that I get from the 2 counties I signed up for in the Gold Club's FSBO lead service are further away from me than the leads from South Jersey and Northern Delaware that I have my VAs also looking at. I want to be able to expand my real estate business, newly formed, into those states. My question is, can the LLC that I registered in Pennsylvania, where I live and have a business address, do business in those other 2 states without being registered there? Thanks.
Well, Dave, the answer is you're going to have to check with those 2 states on that, because I know you can do business there without being registered there, but I'm afraid you might run into a tax issue with the states if they have a state tax. And you should check with actually, you might even be able to get that answer on Google, frankly. That's probably the fastest and the easiest way. So, I don't know the laws in all the states. However, I can tell you that doing it virtually is not a problem anymore. In fact, what day is it, Nick? We're going to do a whole 5-hour thing.
That's June 11th.
That's June 11th. We're going to do
Thursday.
Thursday. That's 2 weeks. Week from today.
No, it's 1 week. 1 week from today.
Okay. And it's free. So it's all about doing business in this COVID environment, which means virtually. And a lot of people are doing just exactly that. So what that does is open up a whole new world of doing business in other places without having to visit the houses. So it's, it's really cool. There's always positive something comes out of these catastrophes, and that's one of them. It's going to change the way we do business for the better. Okay.
All right. Next question is from Arno Garan. Him from California. I have a property under contract in Southern California with severe fire damage for $199,000. It's difficult for me to figure out the after repair value because it is a 2,900 square foot house, and the biggest house that's sold nearby is only 2,000 square feet. One for $850 and one for $800. There is a 2,700 square foot home that is not nearly as nice as this would be after being rebuilt on Zillow for 100 days. At 1.2 million. I sent a builder out there who sent me photos of the inside and recommended it be torn down and rebuilt, and said he could do it for between $200,000 and $250,000, and it would take 6 months. I don't have experience rebuilding homes, but since most 3.2 homes in America are less than 200K retail, I'd imagine it costs less to build one that already has a foundation in place, even in Southern California. I'm thinking of assigning the contract and posted it on Craigslist, the MLS, and other places for $499. I got some people interested right away, but no serious offers except one guy.
Okay. Well, that's a good question. And first of all, I agree with it should be rebuilt. I mean, built, not rebuilt, because you'll never get that fire smell out of there. If you're going to rehab a fire burnt house, you got to take every single charred board out of that house, or you'll never get the odor out of it. And by the time you rebuild that house, you probably will have more money in it than if you build another one. Now, fortunately for you, in California, they got this new rule called SB 330, which forces the city to give you higher density. I want you to consult with our mentor, Alton Jones, who will enlighten you on that, because he's taken a regular house and he's building a building unit out of the garage. In other words, he's increasing the number of families that can live there, which greatly increases the value of the property. Get a hold of our office and we'll get you a phone number for Alton Jones. He's right in your backyard and he's doing what you want to do. I like your numbers. If you can get that house for $199, it sounds like it's going to be worth well over $1 million, because you got 900, you got twice the square footage of the comps you're using. Now, if it's new, you might be able to put a duplex there, more than one unit there. So I think you got a killer deal working there. But if you want to wholesale it, so be it, because other people out there know what I just said to be true. In fact, Alton might even want to buy it. So get in here and get the number for Alton, and you guys have this discussion, because he's really qualified for what you're talking about.
All right. Sounds like we do have a little caveat here to add one more thing. Within hours of getting off the phone call with the guy that he received the email from, someone who filed a lien on a property. I'm thinking the right thing to do is keep posting it for the same price until I find my buyer and let them know that there's a lien that is in the process of being resolved.
Well, you didn't tell me how big of a lien, but that's a seller's problem, not your problem. If the seller's getting $199,000, that money's got to come out of their proceeds, not your proceeds.
Okay. All right, let me take this question down. All right, now I got another video question for us.
Hoboken, New Jersey. Thanks for taking my question. I wanted to ask you if you could explain when you're negotiating with a term seller about something I've heard you say a few times on your videos about making your first payment to them 30 days or 60 days after you close. Could you explain that in more detail?
Yeah.
And the other question that I had was about allowing them to stay in the house for a few months after you close.
Okay.
Are you paying them every month during that time period? And then a similar question about
You want to pause it, John, so we can answer these ones?
90 days.
What?
I asked John to pause it so we could answer these ones, and then we'll get to this last question.
I didn't get his first name.
Yeah, I think John started a little bit late there. It started with the city. John, do you know what his name is? Okay, well, we'll come back and grab it for you.
Okay, well, Mr. Unknown. The first question was about the 2 or 3 months before we make the first payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I never address that on the telephone. I don't even talk about that till we get into the house. Don't be giving the seller all reasons to say no before you even get a chance to talk to them face to face and give them a chance to say yes. I only discuss that when I'm sitting down writing the contract, because frankly, it's a moot point until we're ready to write a contract. If we don't have an oral agreement on everything else, no reason to bring that up. So when I'm writing a contract, I just tell them, all right, today is whatever it is, and you're going to be living in the house till the end of the month. Okay, my payments will begin in the 3rd month after you're out of the house. And then I'll let them respond. Okay, there's only 2 things they can say, okay, which is usually what they say, or why so long? And then, of course, you need to be ready to answer the objection, because I need time to find somebody to put in this house that I think can get it qualified and cash us both out. And my experience tells me that takes a little time to weed through all of the people who I don't want in here to get to the one that we should want in your lovely home. Would you agree? Okay. And the second question was what, Nick? I can't even remember. See, it's a good thing.
Yes, if we continue to pay them during that time.
Okay. Look, many times the seller needs to stay in the house after you buy it. Like maybe they're building another house. Maybe they're trying to find another house for whatever reason. I don't care. Now, please don't think I'm going to make their payment while they're sitting there for free. That ain't going to happen. So let's say the seller, like I just did one of these the other day. Let's say the seller wants to stay in a house for about 3 months after you close. Well, fine. They keep making their own payment. I'll buy it today. I'll close on it within a few days. I'm an advocate of closing as fast as you can close to protect the deal. So I'll go ahead and close on it, but they will make their own payment until they're out, and they'll keep making them for 2 to 3 months after they're out based on what I just discussed. So the bad news is I can't collect my big front end deposit right now, but what would I care? Just wait for that big paycheck. But in the meantime, by letting them stay in the house, if they need to, you've got a buying feature that no owner occupant is going to allow them to do. So it's a big plus to get them to sell you the house over anyone else, because they get to stay in it after they're out. And while you're at it, make sure you tell them, well, hey, if you got, leave furniture in here, just go ahead and leave it. You don't have to move it on. I'll take care of it. And you'll be surprised what they'll leave. They leave all kinds of good stuff.
Okay, go ahead and continue, John.
Yeah.
Is to find a buyer, right? I've heard you mention that before, and I was wondering if you are paying them every month during that time period. So if you can explain those scenarios, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Okay. When I put a tenant buyer in a house, I collect the first month's rent up front the day they get the keys, and they start making the rent from that point. If I buy a house and I've got to go find a tenant buyer, remember, we just said that's why I'm getting 2 to 3 months before my payment starts. So if I buy a house and I can't find a buyer within 2 or 3 months, then it is true, you will be making the payments. Now, you're not going to be legally obligated, but you're morally obligated. That's what you said you were going to do, because I'm not going to allow you to guarantee any debt. But just the same, you should make those payments. But if you can't find that tenant buyer within that couple of months, something is wrong with your process, and that needs to be looked at heavily and get fixed. But yeah, you would have to come out of the pocket and make the payment. But remember, we're not really selling that house. We're actually just renting the house to someone. You could always lower the down payment requirement. You could always straight rent it if you had to. There's always a way to fix it. Okay.
All right. So to recap, you just you agreed to do what you agreed to do.
Yeah.
If you negotiated 2 to 3 months after the seller moves out, you don't start making payments until 2 to 3 months after the seller moves out, regardless of if you get somebody in there or if you're still looking for a buyer or whatever.
That's correct. And where do you think that attitude came from? Okay. I made an awful lot of payments on houses that I shouldn't have because I didn't understand, hey, let's put the risk back on the seller where it belongs.
Okay. One other thing you mentioned on his first question was that you don't talk about making the next few payments until you're in front of them. How would you handle that now in a virtual environment? At what point would you do that?
I talk about it when they bring it up. So if in this case, you got to fill out the contract and email it to them after you have an oral agreement. And I just write it in there in paragraph 2B or on the paragraph 18 with the stuff that you add on, and let them bring it up. And if they bring it up, it's the same explanation that I gave earlier. And be surprised. Most of the time, they don't even bring it up. It's a condition of my purchase. I'm not asking for it. I'm telling them, basically, this is how I'm going to buy your house. And that is the difference right there, is your attitude about how you present it. If there's the least bit of begging in your voice, you're going to have flack on it.
All right, next question is from Craig in Nevada. I'm new to this concept and I have some questions. I'm looking to do something, but want to understand what I'm getting into and how to get out or what options exist in taking gains or asset value and converting it into other investment or opportunities. So if I'm looking to be a short time investor, say 5 to 10 years, what's the plan to get out, cash out, or convert the investment into cash and to avoid taxes or move on to other options?
All of that in one question, huh?
Well,
Okay.
he elaborates some too, going more into it, but I figured I'd stop if you want to comment.
Well, first of all, there's one good thing about real estate. You can always get out. And if you use my 1031 exchange program, well, that's going to get you no taxes, but all that does is add more properties to your portfolio. So you're not going to get out. If you actually want to cash out of these properties, it's not going to be tax-free unless you're doing it in your Roth IRA. That's the only way to do it tax-free. Or your solo 401k. Both of those are tax-free entities that you can do business in. They come with rules, though. But your question is so loaded. It could go multiple different ways. If you're in the business of buying, rehab, and retailing, you're cashing out anyway. You can quit anytime you want. You're in the same thing with wholesaling. But I like the terms business. I'm building wealth, building a portfolio of properties with people in it that take care of it and spend their own money, do the repairs, and give me a bunch of money to get in the thing to begin with. And I got a big monthly cash flow. All right. So I just have to decide when I want to convert those tenant buyers to cash sales. And that'll take a while because they're all under leases. And when those leases expires, then you can decide if you want to just put it on the market. I list them with Realtor if I want to cash out of them. So it really doesn't take that long to sell them. Your plan is going to depend on how you buy the properties to begin with and, your own personal business needs.
Okay. So you had mentioned 1031 exchanges. So he asked, can 1031 exchanges also be executed in this idea if you're trying to consolidate your investment asset pool and overcome multi-state ownership issues, taxes, travel, and expense issues.
You can take a whole bunch of houses and exchange them into a shopping center if you want to, something like that. And frankly, never pay taxes as long as you maintain that real estate you've exchanged into. The minute you cash out of it, you're going to pay taxes. Fortunately, long-term capital gains, though, which is 15 to 20%, depending on tax bracket you're in.
All right. And he says long-range planning. Are there trust plans that should be considered as vehicles for the protection of this type of operation?
Absolutely. Okay. If you want to know about that stuff, get our Structuring Your Empire course that I taped over a 2-day period with my attorney right beside me, because that answers all of those questions for you on trust and how to take title and how to own entities. It's all about asset protection, entity structuring, tax reduction, and it's cheap. Get a hold of our office. You want to post our phone number up there somewhere?
I can. Well, I can't while I'm showing questions, but if you want to say it, it's 800-567-6128. 800-567-6128.
Okay. Tell them you were watching this and Ron said give him you a good deal. It's audios and videos, by the way, and it comes with a manual. And it even comes with a form you fill out and send it to me and tell me how you're structured, and I'll get you back some information on what I think you ought to change.
All right, and then just to wrap up his question, I think you've pretty much covered it, but I'm looking to do something, but need to also understand where I'm going and how to unwind or convert to another possible investment consideration or retirement fund. What are smart pathways to do this that also can be considered?
Smart way to do the retirement fund is easy. You just do them in a Roth IRA and a solo 401k, and both of those are tax free. If you got to set the solo up so it is tax free, but there's nothing better than that. Those are gifts from the IRS for retirement. And for exit strategies, come on, that's all in the eye of the holder. That's when you're ready. But the thing about real estate is it's easy to cash out of, unlike some businesses.
All right. Next question is from Jeff in Utah. As a new Gold Club and Dream software member, what should I look for when I receive my Gold Club leads? How do I know which leads my VA should call, and how often should my VA call?
Your VA should call all of them if they are houses for sale anywhere in where you want to work. All of them. You have no idea whether that's a good lead or not a good lead until your VA calls it. Your VA only calls them one time. They get the property information sheet filled out, then you make the closing call, and that's it. They're either in or they're out. If you like the answers, you make an appointment. If they want you to come to their house, or you have them send you videos of the house and take it from there.
Okay. Next question is from Jerry in California. I always hear you say we'll pay all your closing costs to the seller. What exactly are the closing costs, and to whom do you pay the closing costs? Does it differ state to state?
It differs from state to state. And I only pay the closing costs when the seller's not getting any money. If the seller's getting money, then I expect them to pay some of the closing costs, especially if it's a big chunk of money. Like if I'm buying all cash, I want them to pay most, if not all, the closing costs. If I'm taking over somebody's debt and I'm not giving them any money, it's only fair for me to pay the closing costs. Now, what they are in California, you're going to have to find out on your own. They're not really that bad, as I recall. But any realtor, any attorney, or any skilled investor can tell you what the closing costs are and how to figure them out. And this is something you should know before you go volunteering to pay them. Because some states, they're really high. Some states are almost non-existent.
All right. Next question from Jerry is, I got 2 yes leads from my VA, but it says the seller refuses to share the loan amount and the
very
PITI.
common. That's very common. So what? You pick up the phone, you call them, and you tell, and they know you're the principal. They'll give you the loan amount.
Okay. They also mentioned the VA did check yes on box B. Would you think this would be a waste of time to call them back? Say not.
Check yes on box B is what you're looking for. That means they've said yes to the question, would you consider taking a monthly payment?
Yeah. So it's a yes lead, but they wouldn't give the loan information. So
absolutely. Look, you need to call all the yeses and all the nos. You'll get as many deals out of the nos as you do out of the yeses if you use my no script and get good at making that call. which I'm telling you is the key to your success in the terms business. That call is the absolute code that has to be cracked. When you crack that code, you'll find these deals come together a lot more. Now, look, just because it's a yes lead don't mean it's a deal. Make sure you understand that, because a lot of those yes leads are not really yes leads. That's just what they told our VA from a simple question. And you get on the phone and they say, I didn't say that or whatever. Well, if you use my scripts and you practice at getting good at this and you don't beg, you'll find that, and you give them the reasons why they might want to say yes, you'll get plenty of deals out of any pile of leads. It's all going to depend on that call.
Okay. Going on about that same house, the seller's asking 1.6 million and thinks it would appraise for the same. House is free and clear, vacant, needs no repairs. I'm thinking owner financing would be my best option. Would you agree?
Owner financing is probably your only option, but if he's asking 1.6 and that's all it's worth, I'm not his buyer. I don't pay retail price for houses, even on terms. There's no reason he can't give away a little of that equity. So, you got to be careful. If you're going to pay 100% of the value, how are you going to make money? The only place you can get a profit is by raising the price of the property. And honestly, if that's the only way I've got to make money, I got better things to do. If a guy's got a $1.6 million house and he ain't willing to give up at least $150,000 or so, go to the next one and quit messing with him. You're probably never going to pull a deal together with that kind of a seller anyway.
All right. Then he says, what's a good line to negotiate his asking price?
Okay. If he's asking 1.6 and he thinks it's worth 1.6 and you have no reason to doubt it, I just tell him, say, listen, we can probably come together on these other terms, but I got one problem. And if we can fix that, we can probably make a deal here. And that is you're asking 100% of the retail price of the property. And I simply can't pay you that. I got to have a way to make a profit here somehow. I mean, gosh, you'd pay a realtor 6% for crying out loud. That is what? That's over $100,000 right there. So tell me, what's the best you can do on this asking price?
Okay.
And you let him answer, and you hit him again. Really, is that the best you can do? You let him answer and say, well, so you're telling me then if I don't pay you that number, you won't sell me the house? Don't forget, I'm willing to close quickly. There won't be any house inspection. There won't be any of that junk. And from that day forward, you can forget about the house. And if you've agreed, you pay the closing costs. But I'd be careful about paying closing costs on a $1.6 million house, because you're talking about thousands of dollars, thousands, depending on what state you're in.
Where was he? He was in California.
Okay, I just don't know what they are in Cal. It seemed like they weren't that bad.
Remember, California had very low transfer tax.
Yeah,
it was $1.10 per thousand, so really low.
Was it $1.10 or was it 1 point something percent of?
$1.10 per thousand.
Well, $1.10 per thousand is really cheap because it's $7 a thousand here in Florida.
All right.
Check it out.
Next question is from Juan in New York. If I'm virtual wholesaling, how do I get my boots on the ground? I'm having a hard time with this. And also, how do I get the seller financing script to start?
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's two different questions there.
Yeah. If I'm virtually wholesaling, how do I get boots on the ground? Meaning somebody needs to go look at the house. Well, in today's world, nobody needs to go look at the house. If you put the thing under contract and you put it out on the market in that same area and somebody says, yes, I'll pay you 10 grand more than you're paying, what do you care? You don't need to even see the house. And that's the way the big wholesalers are doing it. Now, some of them are sending somebody out to look at them. That's just somebody you get from that area. Gosh, you can go on Craigslist and get somebody to go look at a house and shoot pictures of it for you. Or Tackle, Takl. I like that little app where you get people to do cheap jobs for you. But if you're going to wholesale out of your city, come on. I hope that ain't your biggest roadblock you've got to overcome, is getting somebody to go look at the house for you. So what was the rest of the question?
The second part of the question was, how do I get the seller financing script to start?
There is no seller financing script if you're wholesaling. Wholesaling means you're paying a cheap all cash price and you're going to sell it for a little higher all cash price. Don't know how you got those two mixed up. Seller financing and wholesaling, two different businesses.
Okay. Our favorite questioner, Mary Ann Nunez from California.
Ann. I don't know how we could do this without Mary Ann.
Mary Ann sends in more questions than anybody, so we love getting questions from Mary Ann. If I sign an agreement with the seller for either a lease purchase or seller finance, is that when I need to call the HOA to ask if they'll allow me to sell on lease option?
I'd call them before I sign the agreement, Mary Ann. Because if you can't lease option it, what are you going to do with it? Now, there is one thing you can do with it. If you buy it with owner financing, you can always sell it with owner financing. HOA can't stop you from doing that. But you need to know that going in.
Yeah, and of course, if you're buying it on a lease purchase, then of course you'd be able to sell it on a lease purchase as well.
No, not if the HOA prohibits putting a tenant in the house. Now, your seller will know the answer to that question. And if they don't, ask them to find out. You don't have to call them, ask them to find out, and you can verify it before you close.
So you're saying you could buy it on a lease purchase without, as long as you don't occupy it? You just would never want to do that though, right?
The problem with the HOA is they prohibit the lease purchase. So regardless of how you control the house, you can't put a tenant buyer in it.
Right.
Now that's not all HOAs now. Most of them do not have that provision.
Okay. Mary Ann gave us a lot. She wanted to get all of her questions in, so we've got a few.
All right.
Because LLCs in California cost $800, I called a company regarding using a registered agent to handle an LLC in Alaska. I was told Alaska is one of the 4 states which provides the same protection to single-member LLCs as other states do to multi-member LLCs, and creditors are prohibited from accessing the assets of either single or multi-member LLCs. Do you know if this is true?
No, I do not, and I doubt it. If you're living in California, you have a dispute in California, you're probably going to be forced to deal with California rules, but I do not know that because I've been in similar disputes like that, and it's case by case. Because you're using an Alaska operating agreement that is in your favor, and you may be able to force it under Alaska law, but that could go either way, Mary Ann. So you might want to consider not having a solely owned LLC. You must know other people you want in it, children, grandchildren, or whatever. Just have more than one entity owning it, and you're much better protected. But if it is a solo LLC, don't let too much assets go into it.
If you have a multi-member LLC, is there a minimum amount, like a share that they have to have?
I've got a couple with half a % share owners.
Okay, so a small price to pay for that additional protection. Huh?
Yeah, but if you got kids, you need to get them in there anyway. I mean, it's the perfect place to put them. They're part of your family. They're part of your assets. Keep in mind now, anybody you put in this thing is also subject to whatever percentage of taxes this thing generates. So if it makes a lot of money, they're going to get a tax bill for their little share. But hey, you could always pay the taxes on that share if you needed to, like for your children. And you got to make distributions to them. So if I got 2 kids, each own 0.5%, and I take out a draw, I got to cut them a check for their prorated share of that draw of whatever 0.5% is. Now, in my case, if I cut the check, I'm going to have them sign it back to me for rent anyway. So no big deal.
Okay.
I ain't getting free money.
All right. Do you also know if this is true or false that if I have an LLC in Alaska to use to do deals with properties in California and someone wants to sue me, I'm not protected because the property is not in Alaska?
Well, that's the same answer I just gave you, actually. You can have an LLC in one state that owns properties in other states. I have them, okay? But you're asking me about a state law. I can't give you an answer on it. That's an attorney question. So, and by the way, I'd make it a California attorney question. Again, you can sue and try to get the venue to be Alaska, but it's going to be case by case. What if your contract or whatever you're fighting over says that the venue is California? You're going to be trying this thing in California, most likely.
Okay. All right. Next question from Marianne is, when we do an owner finance deal with a seller with 0 down and we want to close before finding a buyer, you say that we pay the closing costs. So do you also tell the seller that when the tenant buyer is ready to cash out sometime in the future, the seller doesn't pay any of those closing costs also?
Marianne, you should never have a conversation with your seller about a tenant buyer. That should never come out of your mouth. Look, you're there to buy their house. They don't need a seminar on what you're going to do with it after you buy it. This is where people get in trouble. They yak too much, flap, 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 talk too much. Just shut up. There should be no conversation about a tenant buyer unless the seller brings it up. And then you say, well, I'm going to put somebody in there and ultimately get them cashed out. That's the end of that conversation. All right. So the answer to your question is, when you sell to them, the tenant buyer is usually going to pay all the closing costs anyway. So it has nothing to do with your seller. And by the way, I almost always close the purchase before I find a tenant buyer because I want to protect the deal. If it's a good deal, I want to own it as fast as I possibly can. Every day that goes by is a day you stand to lose that property if you don't get it closed and own it. If I got to come out of pocket, I'm going to, and I do because I paid a closing cost. Whatever it takes, I want to buy it if I know it's a deal. Only if I don't know it's a deal because the numbers scare me some way, or payments are really high or whatever, then I'll go find the tenant buyer first on my 90-day plan where I got to find a tenant buyer before I close. But honestly, I only use that in extreme cases, and I haven't used it in quite a while. I just rather close it and own it, and then I'm in total control of it. Plus, I get to depreciate it, and now I got an asset that will produce income for a long time, and I've built a golden goose. I'll go worry about getting a tenant buyer in there later. Hey, worst case, guys, I know some of you worried about getting a tenant buyer in there. Hey, come on, tell me you can't rent a house to cover the payment. If covering the payment is what you're concerned about, quit being concerned about it because you're wasting a lot of deals.
All right. Next question is from Methodios in New York.
Okay.
When starting out and first creating a land trust, can you be the beneficiary and the trustee?
No. Beneficiary has to be different than the trustee. Now, don't get me wrong. Your LLC can be the trustee and you can be the beneficiary, which is the way most of mine are. So your LLC is not you. Now, some states don't allow LLCs to be trustees. It has to be an individual. And if that were the case, then just get some other individual. But no, you cannot be both.
Okay. Can you recommend any companies that create land trusts?
Yeah, you. I recommend you get to my training and then you'll see, you'll be laughing at that question. In fact, you can get that information at my boot camp. You can get it in my terms course. You can get it in that Structuring Your Empire class. In fact, in that class, we literally wrote up a trust while we were in the class. When you see how simple it was, I think there's 5 or 6 questions you got to answer on the deed and 5 or 6 more on the trust agreement. You record the deed, you go file a trust agreement in your filing cabinet, and you have formed a trust. It's really, really that simple. In fact, there's lessons on the Gold Club site, aren't there, Nick?
Yeah.
On how to do that.
Yeah, search for land trust, and you'll find a lot of lessons on land trust and documents, everything you need.
Yeah.
All right. Second question is in subject to deals, one of the risk is the due on sale clause. Do you suggest to use the land trust to make the breach of the due on sale clause less obvious?
It doesn't matter. If you buy the property in a land trust, you have breached the due on sale clause, but that's true no matter how you buy it, except for all cash, because the loan's paid off. Whether it be owner financing or subject to, the due on sale clause could be called due. Fortunately, it probably won't be. Rarely is it ever. Banks don't want houses as long as somebody's making the payments on them, but taking title in the trust doesn't disguise anything. And I think what he's talking about is, can we have the seller put the property in a trust and then assign the trust to us? And that is a question that, frankly, I've never heard a good, solid answer to, because here's why. Now, if the seller were selling me the property, regardless of how we sell it to me, it would trigger due on sale clause. But he's not selling me the property. He's selling me the personal property, which is the beneficial interest of the land trust. So I don't know, to tell you the truth. I don't worry about it anyway, because I don't care what the banks do. They don't run my life for me. And I'm in total control if I'm not personally guarantee a debt to them. But that's the only thing. That's the only advice I can offer you on that. In fact, I hope you get in trouble on that so you can litigate it and come back and tell me what the answer is.
Have some precedence there, maybe.
Yeah. Hey, I've got enough arrows in my back. Your turn.
All right. He does go on about paying transfer taxes that way too, or avoiding paying transfer taxes. So in addition, can a land trust prevent the transfer fees or revenue stamps?
All right. Well, many investors have had the seller put it into a land trust, which means there are no transfer taxes, and then transfer that trust to you. But I got to tell you, it's likely you're going to get a bill from the county maybe a year later, but they're probably going to want their transfer tax. But on the other hand, got the same thing. They say they transfer the trust to you. They transfer personal property. It wasn't real property. See, the trust still owns the house, no matter who owns the trust. So there's a case to be made there that you could avoid them, but you'd probably have to litigate it.
Okay.
And if anybody finds any actual litigation on that subject, I'd like to get it myself.
All right. So so the seller feels at ease. Try saying that 5 times fast, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
So the seller feels at ease. Can you use 2 insurance policies to help keep the deed transfer discreet? Most of the time, the lender finds out about the deed transfer when the insurance notifies them.
That's just not true. First of all, that's a myth. Look, you can do whatever you want, but if you got 2 insurance policies on a house, one of them is not going to pay off. And if you try to collect on both of them, you're breaking the law, and they got prison sentences for that. It don't work that way. When you buy a house, the seller's insurance is going to get killed. It is no longer valid. And when the title changes, that insurance is gone. So if somebody wants to keep paying on it, God bless them. But they're really dumb to do that. So when you buy a house, you have to put a non-owner occupied policy on it, and the lender has to be notified and named as the mortgagee. That does not trigger the due on sale clause. There is no insurance department here and call the loan due department here at a bank. In fact, most of the time there's multiple states apart. It don't work that way. And the bank is not going to call a loan due without a reason. And then, let me train you, and I'll probably convince you that they ain't going to call it due even if they think they got a reason. I can stop them cold all along. Just don't worry about all that crap.
All right. Yeah. The next question continues into that. What happens if you're honest and let the lender know? This is big here. So what do you guarantee to the seller? Other than the payments, do you also guarantee if the bank calls a loan due that you'll refinance?
I am not guaranteeing anything. And if I catch you guaranteeing it, I'm going to come smack you, personally beat the crap out of you with a big board and draw blood. And it won't be mine. Guaranteeing debt is the biggest mistake you can make in real estate. That's a no. You do not guarantee debt, and you do not refinance. If you refinance, you got to guarantee the debt. Not in the single family house business. Absolutely not. So we don't guarantee debt. We buy them in a land trust. The trustee signs the note as trustee. There's no liability to the trustee. There's no liability to the beneficiary. Therefore, the only thing that's liable is the house for the note. Don't pay the note, they foreclose on the house. Not you. You don't own the house. They foreclose on the land trust that owns the house. Well, okay, the only thing in the land trust is the house. This is how we keep from actually guaranteeing debt. Now, we're talking about owner financing deals here. Understand that. You're not going to go to the bank and borrow money in a land trust and not guarantee debt. So stay out of banks. That's the smart thing to do. And if you go in them, just don't go on the carpet where the loan officers are. Nowadays, can't go in them anyway. So good. Yeah. I hope they keep them closed.
I thought that question might get you going, Ron.
Yeah.
All right. And his last question is, in lease options, what happens since the owner still holds title to the property if he incurs a financial problem and a lien is placed on the property?
Well, if a lien is placed on the property, it's his responsibility to clean it up. If he doesn't, he's in breach of contract. I think you're probably over worrying about things like that, but it could happen. But then again, you have a valid agreement that you can enforce by law. It comes down to that, but it is totally the seller's responsibility to fix that problem. It's not yours. Now, it might become your problem if you've got a tenant buyer ready to cash you out. But if that's the case now and he can't fix it, you got some damages. You could sue for damages. So, it's case by case. But man, the things people worry about, eh?
Yeah.
You got about as good a chance of that happening as a jet falling out of the air and hitting you right in the head.
All right, Ron, I just want to let you know we're only about a quarter of the way through the questions right now. So
okay, so you're telling me to
pick
talk
up the pace.
All right.
All right, Paul says, does your IRA have to be a self-directed Roth for someone to use for real estate deals? When
Yes.
they put the money back in it, does it need to be a Roth IRA to be tax-free?
Yes.
Same for a 401k?
Yes.
Okay,
That's short enough?
short enough. All right, Darlene from Maryland. Is it a good time to put my home in a trust so I can buy a home from my mom and I to reside while I use her home and my home, which I still owe a mortgage on, as rental property?
Putting your property into a trust affects none of the things you just said. That's not going to affect you tax-wise. It's not going to relieve you of liability on that mortgage. So I'm not sure I understand the question beyond that. But it's always a good thing to put your property into a land trust, regardless of what your residence or any other kind of property, for several reasons. Go Club site and pull up some land trust lessons and start learning about land trust. They're so much simpler than people think they are.
All right. Next question is from Charlie in North Carolina. He posted an ad. He didn't post it. He in his question, he showed an ad of a fix and flip investor looking to get their investment cash back on a house. So what is the best way to approach these sellers? Or should I just stay away from them? Are they a waste of time?
Stay away from who? What did I miss?
So he sees a lot of ads for a 3-2 house, recently remodeled. So these are basically people who rehabbed and are now retailing these houses.
Yeah, you're wasting your time with those. You're wasting your time. They want to cash out of them. They're just rehabbers.
Okay. All right. Michael from Missouri. I've bought subject to many years ago, and recently I've been buying flips and rentals. Regarding subject to, has anything changed in the last 10 years? I was recently told by the leaders of our local RIA that subject to investing is now riskier, but no reason why.
That's probably because they took a lesson from me. And it's not any more riskier than it always has been. It's just that my attitude has changed on it. And when my attitude changes, it goes all the way down into a lot of other places. And here's the deal. When you take a loan subject to, you're just simply taking over the debt, not guaranteeing it. But the seller has no way to recapture the house if you don't pay. They're putting their credit in your hands, which is one thing. But they have no way to get the house back. What happened?
All right. I don't know. Oops.
Well, I'm going to keep talking, can I? All right.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, because you're not creating any debt to the seller. If you buy it on a wraparound mortgage, deed of trust, or land contract, or some other device like that, your trust owes the seller money. If you don't pay that money, the seller can foreclose and get the house back if you make it. Okay? But if I buy a house subject to, I owe the seller nothing. There is no land contract. There is no wraparound mortgage. There's nothing for the seller to foreclose on. I have just orally agreed to start paying their bank on their loan that stays in their name. So they have no way to get it back. But probably more importantly, if I buy a house subject to from a seller and they have a $2,000 a month payment, that's going to stay on their credit, but now they got no way to prove that they got an income to wash out that payment because I bought it subject to. I don't owe them any money. So, but if I buy a house on a wraparound mortgage, then they have a debt instrument that's recorded on public records that says I'm paying them $2,000 to wash out the $2,000 that they're paying. So it shouldn't kill their debt ratio. Some banks want that to season a while. But it will not stop them from going and qualifying for another loan.
Okay.
So it don't cost any more to do a wraparound than it does a subject to anyway. Let's just do it so we don't have comebacks later from the seller who really didn't understand what you're doing to them.
All right. He continues, he said, when I did it in the past, I closed with a real estate attorney and had my CYA disclosure for the seller and buyer. I was told that in Missouri and Kansas, land trusts are not legally recognized.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, that's not true. But in fact, I had a house in Missouri. Guess how I owned it? In a land trust. And that attorney said the same thing until we proved that was baloney. Be careful to whom you listen. But look, if land trusts are your biggest problem, just go ahead and take title in LLC. I don't care. I mean, I'm not going to go through all that now. Go get my Structuring Your Empire course, and we go through all of that with an attorney sitting right beside me. By the way, I just got a message here. That course is normally $997. They can get it for $497 today, Nick, if they call into our office.
Wow.
Somebody, better make sure somebody notifies them, huh?
Okay, you know that course is normally $1497, right, Ron?
Well, it's $497 today. That's all I know. All right, John's sitting over there. John, you there?
He's there.
Okay, stick your head in the camera so
All right.
people can see what you look like. This is our tech guy.
He's coming.
All right. By the way, you see that picture up on the wall behind me? Picture up on the wall behind me? Hey, that's John Duck. All right. That picture on the wall behind me is my dad.
Oh, yeah?
I'm sitting here looking at my dad, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's a nice picture. All right. Let's see. It says I used that in the past and would transfer the deed to the XYZ family trust. I also always got a limited power of attorney that covered the specific property and allowed for insurance and taxes.
All right. Well, stop.
Okay.
I understand. Thousands of deals are done subject to every day. They're still done every single day. I get it. Okay. But I'll say again, most of the time, the seller doesn't know the ramifications of that until later down the road, they actually want to go get a loan. Now, the loan's going to stay in their name regardless. Got that. That's the CYA letter. They got to understand that. But to avoid comebacks later, I'm just telling you, if you do a wrap, at least they got some income to show that washes out their debt, and they got recourse if you don't pay. And in fact, many attorneys will not close a subject to deal for that reason.
All right. I'm going to skip over the rest of the subject to stuff here.
right.
He's got one last thing. Kansas City is right on the state line, so I will be investing in both Missouri and Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I assume you can make your trustee your LLC.
I can, yes. You mean my LLC, the trustee?
Yeah.
The answer is yes, but you need to verify it because half the states require an individual.
So I wonder if those half split along Missouri and Kansas.
They have this thing called Google.
Yeah.
Go to Google.
All right. Here's an out of the country question from David in Jerusalem. I live in Israel and I want to know if it's possible to do deals without setting foot in the States.
David, the answer is yes. Many people do, but then there's money transfer rules that you're going to have to explore. And I can't possibly comment on what that would be for folks living in Israel.
Okay. Jessica in New York says, I'm in my 20s and started with you this year in January and got on board slowly. And now I have a contract on a house in Montgomery, New York. He originally was going to give it to me below asking price, but with 11% interest. But just having conversation with him, and after I ran numbers, I went with the lease option, no money down and no interest.
Mm-hmm.
I had to give him asking price though, but it's okay. He didn't believe it himself the next day. Asking price $290K and a lease for 3 years. Needs to be staged and painted. Also, I was thinking about splitting the property because it's sitting on 2.6 acres of land. What do you think I should do? Give it to me raw, Ron.
Okay. Well, first of all, there's no way he's ever going to get 11% out of me. So you conquered that nut. On the other hand, why are you giving him full retail price, especially when it needs some work? I'm very reluctant to see you do work on somebody else's property. And a lease purchase means you do not own the property and you cannot split it. Now, you could split it if you're actually selling off part of it to pay him off and getting him out of the way and own the rest of it free and clear. You can do that, but that's as far as you can go until somebody's ready to pay off that underlying amount you owe him on that lease option. I just wouldn't have given him retail price for it, to tell you the truth. I would have arrived at a number that I could give him and hand it to him and let him come back to back to me when he's ready to say yes, because he would say yes, especially if it needs that work you're talking about. Think about it. If it needs that kind of work, then what owner occupant is he going to sell it to? Or maybe even rent it to? So you're in the driver's seat. Just tell him what you can do. I'm telling you, you should see some of these commercial deals I'm doing here. I make an offer called a letter of intent. They come back and they want to raise it. I go back and say, no. Most of the time, the next day they say, okay, my seller's agreed. Well, guess what? I don't care if they agree or they don't agree. If they don't agree, I got other things to do. I got a whole pile of properties that I'm working on. And that's the key. You cannot be working on one house and have it run your life. You need a stack of deals, and not so any one of them won't matter that much. And it puts you in the driver's seat mentally. It makes you come to the conclusion it's just another deal. You don't like it? Okay, I'll move on. I'm not saying you can't negotiate a little bit back and forth, but you got to draw the line and have a reason to do business. So now you got this thing under contract. How are you going to make money on it if you're paying retail price? I don't know, unless there's a good monthly spread in it. Because now you got to raise it above retail. How are you going to do that if it needs this work? All right, that's all I can input on that one. Better get to trained. Better get to my boot camps, what you ought to do.
All right.
Which is extremely cheap compared to some of the lessons some of you are going to take trying to avoid it.
Yeah. Maria from New Hampshire says, can I use the purchase and sale agreement in the Pretty House course for a small commercial deal? It's 180 grand.
Yeah, but you should be running it by an attorney first anyway, once. But yeah, you can. In fact, I've done many small commercial deals with that contract.
Okay. She says the seller owns it free and clear and will owner finance. And if so, are there any changes to it? And like you said, run it past an attorney.
You haven't told me what kind of commercial. There is more due diligence to do with commercial than there is with residential. I'm worried more about that than what contract you use.
Okay. Maria's next question. If a seller agrees to terms, but will only agree to 2 years to own or finance a property with a good amount of equity, would going to the bank to do a refinance after the 2 years be a good backup plan?
You didn't mean to ask me that, did you?
I think it was a typo.
If I catch you going to a bank to refinance, I'm telling you, I'm going to hurt you. We don't do that. However, if you have to be pinned down to 2 years, well, first of all, that means you need a little practice with negotiating, because they ain't pinning me down to 2 years. I'll tell you that right now. But if you have to be pinned down, what you're now looking for is a buyer who can cash you out of the house. So that means you're going to have to look for a buyer that can qualify, maybe fix a little something first, but can qualify and go out and get a loan, because you've only got 2 years to get them cashed out. So no refinancing.
Okay. All right. Next question from Greg in Maryland. The wife and I are now empty nesters, and we are considering downsizing our home that we own with a mortgage. Would it be wise to do my first Pretty House deal using my own home to get that big cash up front and monthly payments that exceed my current mortgage?
I don't understand that question. Is he asking, should he lease purchase his home out?
Well, yeah. His own home, because they want to downsize. So they want to buy a new home.
Absolutely. And in fact, you don't want to sell it with owner financing, because now it's your name on the underlying loan. And, that puts you at risk in case they screw up and the bank does call a loan due. So lease purchasing is the only thing I do with my home. Get the big down payment, and then you really don't care if somebody cashes you out or not. Home goes up in value. Now, when you move out of it and you put a lease purchase tenant buyer in there, it's going to turn into a rental home unless they cash you out within 2 years, which makes it a non-owner occupied property, which changes your tax status on it. So if you turn it into a rental property, you want to investigate the tax consequences if they do cash you out. Probably not that bad, because you only get taxed on the profit. And I don't know how much that would be in your home.
Well, he gives some details on it. It's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,500 square foot, single family house in great shape on half an acre. Market value is $357. Mortgage balance is $280. Monthly mortgage is $1,700, but we don't know how much he paid for it originally.
He didn't tell me what he paid, and that's all that counts.
Yeah. Okay. And I think you covered this. If yes, what would be a reasonable option deposit and monthly lease option to expect as the best they can do?
Every dime I can get. And that is an art within itself. We ask them, what's the most you can put down? Really? That's the most you can put down? And then I go into the, what do you got to trade mode? Car, boat, truck, trailer, RV, or whatever. See if I can get something else on that. And then I just ask myself, is that enough to satisfy me? $300,000 house, and they want to give me $5,000? Nope. I'm not giving anybody the keys. If I think I'm going to get 30 grand and I've only got 15 grand, I might consider it. But many people make the mistake of putting somebody in the house and not getting enough money up front. And all that does is create a problem for later. Any landlord will tell you it's better to have a vacant house than to have the wrong person in it. If you can relax, chill out, have a little patience, the right person will come along. If you got a nice house in a nice neighborhood, but sometimes you got to go through a lot of crap to get to the cream. That means you got to quit worrying about making that payment. That's why we got 2 or 3 months to make it. You should consign yourself that you'd rather make the payment than put somebody in that house that doesn't have enough money.
All right. Would you have any number in your head going in as a minimum, or what you'd like to see?
Well, I've tried to get somewhere around 10%, but frankly, it would be rare I'd put somebody in there less than 5%.
Okay. All right. Question from Young from New York. Will our tenant buyer find out about the price we paid for the house we just bought using seller financing before signing the lease option agreement?
No.
Is that public information?
No, that's none of the buyer's business.
But they could find out if they looked it up, could they?
No. Are we lease optioning the house from the seller, or are we buying it?
We bought it on owner financing.
Okay, they could find that out. I've never known one that did, but it doesn't matter. What do I care if they find out? Honestly, I can't imagine putting a tenant buyer in a house that doesn't think I'm in this for a profit. Okay. And if they say, well, you paid less, I say, yeah, so. Yep. Remember, tenant buyers are stick to you like glue. They can't qualify at the bank. Therefore, you're their window into a home of their own. They don't argue with you about crap like that. And I don't negotiate with them. I don't even talk, price much. It'd be hard for them to get me to lower the price because they need me a lot worse than I need them. Now, of course, the more money they got to put down, the more lenient I am, just so we're clear.
Yeah. All right. Young's second question is, I live in New York and just formed an LLC online and got an EIN number. Where does the tenants by the entirety ownership rule come into play, since New York State never asked me for my wife's info?
I don't know whether New York is even a tenants by the entirety state. Okay. Let's say it is. Then when you are forming your LLC, you just put it in your operating agreement that you and your wife own this LLC 100% tenants by the entirety.
Okay, good. That was the second part of his question. Do I just include my wife's name on the operating agreement and tell the bank the LLC is owned by both of us to serve the owner?
The bank's not going to ask you who owns the LLC. The bank, which bank? The bank has nothing to do with this deal. If your LLC is the trustee, well,
John just looked it up and he says he doesn't think New York is a tenants by the entirety state.
Okay, then you're going to have to find out what the next best thing is where you can own this thing jointly, undivided interest. Again, you better get my Structuring Your Empire course while it's a third of the normal price today. I'm gonna get in trouble for that one, aren't I?
You make the rules, Ron. So
I don't care. I can't be fired.
All right. Third question is, if I own my flipper LLC using tenants by the entirety, which I guess he can't in New York, but can I still pay my wife's salary and treat her as an employee within my company and deduct her salary as expenses?
Sure. But remember, your CPA might suggest you do that, but you and your wife's income is the same, whether the LLC pays her or not. You're still going to pay taxes on this on it. So in my opinion, all you're doing is now paying payroll taxes for your wife by putting her on as salary from an LLC. Because if you pay her a salary, you got to pay the matching FICA and FUTA and payroll taxes. Okay, why not just give her a draw? Okay, so I don't get to deduct the draw. so what? I can write it off by paying her a salary, but now we got to add it to her income. So it comes right back at me. I don't see what you accomplish by doing that. Now, if it's a C corporation, I do, because a C corporation has nothing to do with your personal income tax returns.
Okay. His fourth question is, if I own my LLC, flipper or keeper, using tenants by the entirety rule, do I get 2 K1s at the end of the year? One for myself and one for my wife?
No, you get one with both of your names on it.
Okay.
Because you both own it 100% undivided.
All right. What happens if 3 months go by and we cannot sell the house we just bought using seller financing or subject to? What is plan B?
Plan B is get more advertising out to attract buyers, probably come get educated, and maybe relax your standard a little bit if you have to. Maybe you think you want $25,000 down. Well, I'd rather take $10,000 down than let the house sit there vacant for very long. But caveat, I'm not taking the first 10 that comes along. Okay, I want to play the market a while first and see how much I can get. Remember, you can always rent the house, for crying out loud, if you want to. But I'll tell you, I'd have to look hard on doing that.
It's possible they may have paid too much too. They might have to go back to the seller. Is that?
Well, it depends. It's all case by case. Yeah, it's possible. That's a good point. I would want to ask the people that I'm sending to the house why they haven't bought it. That's always a good point. You might spot the problem right there and you might be able to fix it. So if in fact you paid too much and your tenants don't want it because you're asking too much, then you can go back to the seller and readjust it. Remember, when you are buying without personal liability, the seller only has two choices: either fix what was broke or take the house back. So that's that'll make you sleep better at night when you know nobody's going to come sue you personally for a debt that you didn't incur personally. That's why I don't want anybody personally guaranteeing debt.
Okay. All right. And next question is, if we formed 2 LLCs, one for flippers and one for keepers, as you suggest, and if we only focus on pretty house deals and not doing any wholesaling, rehabbing, or acts, then the flipper LLC is always going to show a loss on paper, since we put most of the business expenses such as Pat Live, VA, car payments, training, etc., through the flippers LLC without any revenue.
Yeah, that probably won't make much money, but the truth is it don't matter if both of these are LLCs, is whatever the losses and profits are going to go to your personal income tax return anyway.
Okay.
So it's not going to change your taxes.
All right. Next question is from David in New York. When purchasing on terms, do you get an inspection as part of the contract? And does your tenant buyer get their own inspection?
I don't get an inspection on a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood. And frankly, I don't know. I've never had a tenant buyer do it, but if they did, I don't care. I'm not fixing anything. So it's up to them. Frankly, the subject just don't even come up. But if they want to, nothing's stopping them.
Okay. Next question is from Kamel in Florida. I recognize you are a great one. Does the seller know? Does the seller know before the closing that the loan won't be paid off at closing?
Oh, absolutely, or there won't be any closing. I mean, golly, they're told that before they even make an appointment to come to their house, or there's no reason to go to their house.
All right, so that covers the next part of his question. If it is disclosed before closing,
it's all in the term script. It's all in the term script. Just read the term script to them, and it clearly tells them. In fact, the yes question that the VAs get, would you consider taking a monthly payment until we can pay you in full? It answers that question.
Right. So you're not surprising them at closing with this.
Oh gosh, no. No. Mm-mm.
All right. Next question is from Roger in Illinois. Who carries the insurance and how is it structured if sellers have mortgage on the property, whether doing a lease or owner financing?
Okay, the minute you take title to the property, you should have your own insurance policy, a non-owner occupied policy. The seller should cancel theirs as soon as your insurance company has notified the bank of the new policy. Seller cancels the old one, and sometimes your insurance company can get them to cancel the old one, making sure that, of course, that the mortgagee, the bank, is named on your policy as well. if you're lease optioning it, there's no insurance to get. Only the seller can insure the property, not you. And when you're lease optioning it, you might suggest to the seller that they change their policy to a non-owner occupied policy, and their rate will drop considerably. But honestly, I mean, that's entirely up to them. It's their job to insure the property if you're just leasing it with an option to buy.
All right. And then he says, here in the state of Illinois, I believe you have to be a licensed realtor to do a lease option. How do you get around that?
You get around that by quit listening to people who don't know what they're talking about. That is not true. In the state of Illinois, though, this first of this year, they did pass a law that says you cannot assign contracts unless you have a license. A couple of years you can do. Other than that, you're going to need a license to assign contracts. So that's going to affect the wholesalers because that's mainly what they do. It does not affect your lease optioning. You're not assigning any contracts when you're doing lease options.
All right. Josh from Georgia. In the following scenario, purchase a home in a land trust where the operating LLC is a trustee and real estate holding LLC is a beneficiary. They place a lease option tenant buyer into the home where the operating LLC collects the non-refundable deposit and the monthly payments from the tenant buyer and also handles paying the mortgage. Do you or could you consider the operating LLC to be acting as a property manager where it can take a percentage of the deposit and monthly payments as income?
Actually, you can do that any way you want it. But remember, if you're going to put a tenant buyer in the house, it should be in LLC C, meaning your investment portfolio, not your operating portfolio. Your operating portfolio is taxed differently. It doesn't get the long-term capital gains and all the goodies that C does. I mean, you can try to claim them until the IRS tags you and calls you a dealer, and they all go away. So I want all rental properties in C. Now, B, your operating entity, can be the trustee of a property that C owns as beneficial interest, if that makes any sense. But all the money should go into C. C should collect the money and pay the mortgage payment, not in B. Now, when you do want to put one in C, if B is broke and needs money, the simplest thing to do is just have C take the money and loan it to B when it's needed.
Okay.
I'm sure everybody understood the answer to that.
Might need to take advantage of that $497 course today, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Rick from Nebraska. We own 2 houses side by side for over 20 years. We live in one and son and wife live in the other. I want to put them in land trusts. I want to make sure I fill out the form correctly. I've got the grantor is my wife and I. For consideration of blank dollars, what is needed here?
10.
Okay.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.
All right. Trustee is an individual of a different last name.
Okay.
On the back, who can sign as a witness?
It doesn't matter. You don't even need if we talk about the deed, you do need a witness for the deed and a notary. Anybody standing around. In fact, there'll probably be one there with the notary, wherever you're going to get notarized, but it has to be notarized to record the deed.
All right. So he says the notary takes care of the back page, correct?
Yeah, but not the witness.
Okay. I'm going to have my LLC as beneficiary.
Is this their residence they're talking about?
Yeah, it's 2 residents side by side. Him and his wife live in one, and the son and his wife live in the other.
Now, the one you and your wife live in you and her need to be the beneficiary. The rental property in LLC can be. Remember, that's that C I just discussed.
Okay.
You don't want an LLC involved in your home unless it's the trustee.
Okay. All right. We've made it halfway through.
You made it more than halfway through.
Well, I mean, we've made it halfway through the question, so a little more than halfway through, yeah.
Well, actually, it's 11:15 already.
I do.
Let me do a quick commercial here, and then do you think we ought to take a break or?
I don't know if we have time. If people can hold out with us and you can hold out, then I'd like to just keep going through.
All right. Well, listen, guys, if you are tuning in today and you like what you see and you like this business and you want to really learn this business instead of trying to get it in little clips like this, which is probably going to get you more trouble than good. You have an opportunity to call my office today, and they're waiting for your call. And the call is all about what we can do for you, because we have a really special deal on mentoring combined with my 4-day quick start school, whether it be virtual or live. In fact, it's both. I mean, we got discounts up to $4,000 off plus Gold Club points. We got a really, really good deal for you right now. We call it the COVID deal. Probably a bad name for it, but anyway, call the number 800-568-6128.
Oh, 567-6128.
Okay. All right. 567-6. And you're get the boot camp. Both virtual's coming up in 2 weeks now. So you want to get to that if you haven't been to it. And even if you have been to it, call them and let them know. And you probably get on there, look for little or nothing. And then come to live when we get a chance, no extra charge. And then there's mentoring. Mentoring is something you really strongly should consider if you're really serious, because it's literally where a private mentor takes you by the hand with one-on-one mentoring. This is not that group stuff where you get on group calls. Literally 30 minutes every week, you have a private call. They go through your deals. They get on the phone with your sellers. They call the sellers for you. They're waiting for you while you're in the house after you've made the appointment. And they'll help you get some deals going during the 6 months that you're with them. And frankly, they're probably the difference between success and failure. And, we all need mentors, no matter what we do. And so we got some good ones that I hand chose. They're all doing what they help you do. They're all running their own business, and they all got a servant's heart. So call the number today, because just ask them to go down the list with you and tell you the great deals we got going on right now, because we got some killer deals going on. We got some big discounts going on right now, as well as Gold Club points, if you know what those are. And just discuss it with them. Not going to hard pressure you, but you have an opportunity right now to save a lot of money that you're not going to be able to save if you wait till later to take action. And plus, we can finance it for you in multiple different ways, in-house. So if you're interested, at least get all of the facts, and then you can make a decision. All right?
All right. I think we had a screen created if you wanted to recap that, or we can just continue with questions. A screen of the special offer today. Well,
I'd rather not, because it depends on what they've already got, because you're going to credit for everything you've already got. I'd rather you just let them discuss it, and they'll go right down the list, and then you can say, well, I already got that or whatever. For example, if you got the terms course, some of you ordered that off of our webinar, there's $1,000 you don't have to spend right there, and you only paid $897 for it. So hey, go get the deal while you can. Okay. If we put that screen up there, it's just going to confuse them anyway.
Sure. All right, make sure you guys write down that number, because I'm about to put questions on and it's going to disappear here, okay? 800-567-6128.
Same number to call to get that Structuring Your Empire course too. And look, I would strongly suggest you get that, honestly. If you care about asset protection, entity structuring, tax reduction, or estate planning, because it's all covered in there, go spend that $500 while you can and get that. That's really a really good course.
All right. One other thing I want to mention, Ron, we do have a lot of people submitting questions right now live. We took all these questions ahead of time. The deadline to submit questions was yesterday at noon.
Okay.
If we are able to get through these, I think we might be able to get Ron to answer a few of those, but
okay.
Hard pressed to get these answers.
Well, let's get going.
Okay. So Carla from Colorado says, you talked about going to meet with the sellers. Can you do this from anywhere in the U.S.? I travel all the time and I'm never in one area long enough.
Yeah. Make sure you're on my 5-hour training on the 11th. And by the way, people are going to submit deals. We're going to have mentors call deals. We're going to have the last hour is going to be deal structuring on that as well. Answer is yes, as long as they're sending you videos. Might be a good idea. You still have someone that can go take a look at the house. But honestly, Carla, when you think about it, if you're not putting up any money, what do you got to lose? That's hard to get from here to here. Okay, if you don't have anything at risk, it's hard to lose.
Yeah. This is probably covered on the 5-hour event next week too. How does this work in these times with people out of work or losing their homes? Is there a market coming up?
That's a good question, actually. The answer is it works well. In fact, think about it. People are at home, they answer the phone more, and some of them are out of work. Some of them have problems. Some of them need to sell their house or want to it because of fear instilled by the media into the marketplace. Look, it's just simple, guys. Believe it or not, the worse times get, the easier this business gets, because people are more apt to sell, and other people need to lease option more because they've given up their home or for whatever reason. And believe me, this COVID's got little to do with buying and selling houses today. The only difference is whether we go to the house or not. And I leave that up to the seller.
Okay.
Assuming I'm in the same city.
Jermaine from Indiana. Do we need to find my own lawyer at the beginning, or do you help with that?
No, I don't help with that. And you don't need a lawyer till you got a deal. So go get a contract to purchase a house, and then you can easily find a real estate closing attorney.
Okay. Allie from Tennessee says, I have a home under contract in Tennessee and closing in 2 weeks. I've worked out 100% seller financing for the full term of his loan.
Good.
Seller just bought it in November of 19, but now has to move because of family issues. House needs no repairs. I'm purchasing for his exact loan amount, which is roughly $118,000. The monthly payment is roughly $660 PITI. My exit strategy is to do a lease with option to buy and get as much as I can for down payment, and I think I can get $1,000 monthly.
Oh, I know you can.
This is a VA loan, and the seller got a $6,000 grant for down payment assistance when he bought. If he sells the house within 10 years, he'll have to pay it back. I plan on keeping this house long-term and offer long-term to my end buyer. What instrument should I use to close this? Agreement for deed. I want to be able to keep the seller financing in place.
Well, the only way to ensure that the VA doesn't want their $6,000 back is to do a lease with an option to buy. Because if the VA finds out that he sold the property, no matter how he sold it, they might want their $6,000. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to ask for it immediately. I'm sure that they'll work out a deal with him to pay it over a lot of years. But it does mean that you're probably going to wind up having to pay him for the $6,000. So I'd want to know more about what's the catch on the $6,000 if he sells the house and what they expect first. But lease option would kill the whole thing. I mean, they can't call it due if he didn't sell it.
Okay. And of course, that $6,000 would be just coming off the purchase price anyway, right?
Yeah, it's not your $6,000. It's his $6,000 to pay. You know, this is one where I might actually put it into a land trust and have the sellers be the beneficial interest, just so I can hold on to that in case the VA did say something. Seller notifies you, you can show the VA that he just put it into a land trust. Of course, he's got to assign his beneficial interest to you, which you just hold on to, which means you still own the land trust.
Okay. Let's see. She continues. I'm just not sure exactly what to use without transferring title out of his name and triggering due on sale clause. So like you said, you can do lease option or...
We just answered that.
My closing agent said do a land contract and don't record it.
Well, your closing agent is giving you crappy advice. First of all, when you do a land contract, you have to record it by law. I've never seen a state where that is not the case. I am surprised your closing agent gave you that advice, because they're in trouble. They're a problem with that. But, you know, that would do the same thing, I guess. But I promise you the state's going to require that thing be recorded. But, you know, that's where you need to bring an attorney in. Let them figure out how to do it.
All right. And lastly, when and if the time comes that my tenant buyer is ready to buy it from me, is that when I would record it? I guess you record it right away.
Yeah, you do all of that in a simultaneous closing. Because now this loan is paid off. It's irrelevant what they want.
Okay.
That's closing agent's job.
All right. And lastly, would I need to get additional insurance on the house?
If you take title to it, yes, you need to get a non-owner occupant policy. If you lease option it, no. All
right. Evgeny from California. This is kind of a long one, it looks like. So imagine you're in sunny and well-taxed California. The local specifics in your county are median price house is $1 million. Many houses doubled in price since 2009 lows. So the long-term owners have some $500,000 in equity and won't be excited to sell for what they owe. The newer owners still have 200 plus in equity, and their PITI is close to 6,000, while the rents for that type of property are under 5,000. How would you approach the pretty house business under these conditions?
I would approach it the same way I do anywhere else, except I would expect bigger paydays. First of all, you don't have to buy it for what they owe. I mean, frankly, that's more rare than common. You just buy with a wraparound mortgage, just hopefully less than what it's worth, but at some point well above what they owe. And you figure out what the term is going to be. That's the way most of the houses I buy are. I owe them more than they owe the bank. So that moots that point. As far as the rents go, I mean, prices go up, the rents go up. As long as there's a big spread in there, that's all I care about. So beyond that, I'm not sure what the real question was. Bigger numbers mean bigger paychecks. More dolly waller in, the more stick to you.
Yeah, I think so. That was the second part. He said his the PITI is close to 6,000, while the rents were only around 5,000.
Well, if the PITI is 6,000, the tenant buyer is going to pay at least enough to cover the 6,000. But on the other hand, let's say I'm selling $1.5 million house. I mean, come on, I ain't going to give anybody the keys if they don't have at least $150,000 to give me. And that's if they can't qualify. If they can qualify, they need more than that. If they can't qualify, let's say I collect $150. If I have to make $1,000 a month negative cash flow, I'm only going to give them about 12 months to go get me cashed out anyway. So let's see. Could I take $150,000 and pay back 12,000 of it? See if that works in your spreadsheet. Tell John to do it. He ain't doing anything over there.
All right. George from Illinois. Can you tell me what a SMLLC is other than a single member LLC, and the difference between a regular LLC and why to choose one over the other?
Because a single member LLC is easy to attack. If they get a judgment against you personally, they'll take that LLC and they'll take a bank account first because you're the only owner of it. However, if you have more than one owner of it, they have properly held so that it's undivided interest, then they're not going to get it.
Okay. Next question from him is, how do you implement work for equity as far as the terms of implementation and credit for the work and inspection of the work?
Well, I don't give them credit for the work. I give them a price that's below retail. They got to go do the work and go get a loan. So there's no credit for me to give them. Now, sometimes though, I put a work for equity tenant buyer in a house, and let's say it needs a central heat and air conditioning system that costs $3,000, and they just can't come up with $3,000. Then I might put that in there up front, and I charge them 125% of what I paid for it onto the price of the house. Sometimes we do that, but I'm not really giving them any credit for the work. It's their job to go get the house fixed and get it refinanced.
Okay. His next question on tax liens. Even though the annual interest rate may be high, I have a feeling most are redeemed within a couple months, thus reducing your returns and seeking more defaulted tax liens quickly. Is this true?
No, your feeling is wrong. Some of them are redeemed quickly, and some of them are never redeemed. And the ones that are never redeemed are the ones that go to a tax deed sale, if that's what their state does. So, you know, making assumptions. If people are going to redeem their tax liens quickly, then why they let them go on the market to begin with? So quit assuming. In fact, Ted Thomas, we just did a 3-day event for Ted Thomas. He's the best there is at tax liens and tax deed sales. Get a hold of our office because we've got several things of his that we can offer you. But you need to learn a little more about that business and quit assuming.
All right. We got Jean from Quebec, or I guess that would be Jean, maybe. Is it realistic for me to be able to invest in the real estate business in the U.S. virtually?
Uh-huh. Whole lot of Canadians are.
Is it possible, or do I need a business partner in the U.S.?
No. You can own an entity in the U.S. if you are in Canada, or you can own an entity in Canada and still buy houses in the U.S. You check with your attorney on that one.
Okay. And probably want to get on our COVID training next week to learn how to do all this virtually.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Of course, everything we're talking about here works in Canada too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we even have a Canadian agreement for sale right on the Go Club website.
Yeah. Sharon from Arkansas. What is the absolute fastest way your students have found to generate motivated, pretty house leads that lead to the first deal in a new town where they know no one?
Well, fastest way, of course, is subscribe to our Gold Club and you get them every day in your inbox. But there's a whole bunch of other ways. In fact, I'm going to go over some of those on the 11th that you can get leads. The key is quality leads. The more quality they are, the easier they are to do deals with. So quality means people who call you for the most part, and or people who have some kind of an issue. So we can do a lot of things to get to those folks. But for right now, we start with the leads we get every day on the Gold Club for a lousy $59 a month to get all those Gold Club benefits and those leads. Incredible bargain, guys. So if you're not on the Gold Club, get on it. Go ronsgoldclub.com. You'll see why it's a big bargain.
Yep. All right. Second question from Sharon is, I need an elevator speech when asked, what do you do? That will cause people to climb through broken glass to do business with me.
I buy and sell houses and close quickly and usually pay all the closing costs. Do you have one for sale?
That'll work.
Mm-hmm.
All right. George from Illinois says, what is working and what is not in today's market?
Oh, you got to be kidding me. How do you answer that? Let's see. What is working is people are still selling. What is not, nothing is working if you don't do the steps and implement them. But I don't know how anybody can answer that question. What is working? What is not? I think the question really is, what is not working now that was working 4 months ago? Make more sense?
Maybe,
And,
or 10 years ago, like short sales. Our short sales is prevalent right now as they were.
No. Gosh, everything we do today, I was easily doing 10 years ago. So I don't think any of that is, the rules have changed, laws have changed in some places, but other than that, what we do has been the same for my entire 30 some odd years.
Sure.
It's just that we learn new stuff along the way. And then of course, technology's changed big time, but going back just 4 months, the only thing that's changed is less investors are doing the business because they think it won't work right now.
Yeah. Axe maybe is a little less prevalent because not as many people are underwater right now. And we stay in the deals more instead of getting out.
But you don't have to be underwater to do an axe deal.
Sure. Okay. Let's see. Next question is from Irma in Georgia. I'm getting several property owners the last 2 weeks with large amounts of land for sale. Currently, I'm trying to make an offer on 2 properties. One property is 19.3 acres. The record card assessed the land and a wooden house and barn on it for a total of $147K for everything. He said his brother was offered $400K several years ago. It is an heir property from a deceased brother. It is in a nice subdivision. It is debt-free in the city limits, and several houses can be built on it or a subdivision.
Yes.
So the question is, what should the offer be?
I have no idea. Nowhere near enough information. Those are the kind of deals I process all day over here for students in my group, and I'd need a lot more facts to be able to answer that question. You probably should get in our commercial boot camp starting on June the 30th, 1st and 2nd of July, our virtual one for the very first time. So call my office and they'll give you a really great deal on that right now as well. In fact, at least $1,000 off, plus you can use Gold Club points. That's where we deal. I have a special session just on land, and I love land. And it sounds like you got a great deal there too, but I need to know more. And I how many, we got so many questions. I can't go on a diatribe on that right now. But in fact, I think we got a lesson on land on the Go Club too, don't we? I don't remember.
We have a course called Flipping Ron Land's Way, or Flipping Land Ron's Way.
Okay. Yeah.
You can call the office 800 number there and ask them about that. Also, if you do sign up for the commercial property, we're giving away that pre-screening commercial properties course, which would be helpful as well.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, that was recorded a while ago, but you just went through it about a month ago.
It was recorded 10 years ago, and I listened to everything in, and I said, crap, this is good stuff. It's all the same, with except maybe some numbers.
Price of a stamp gone up, president changed a couple times, maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
Pre-screening is the same.
All right. Next question is from Ann in Nevada. Is it feasible to use the term strategy in an expensive market?
Sure. In fact, I like it a lot more feasible. In fact, and you probably didn't see the house we did in Nevada, in Vegas, $4 million house. One of our mentors, Joel Sangerman, and I did that one together. And like I said, payment on it, $16,000 a month. That would scare the crap out of you, but we never agreed to make it. Okay. So that was an axe deal. We just collected $150,000 for flipping the contract.
Then he said you always talk about that one, but wasn't there a $6 million one too that you did?
I don't
remember. He was talking about that?
No, he didn't do a $6 million one.
Okay. I thought he said that last time. Maybe I heard wrong. All right. Her next question. Are there any conflicts of interest if I am a licensed real estate agent?
You just have to disclose that you're an agent at the point of a meaningful relationship, which in my opinion is when we're getting ready to fill out a contract. Plus you have to disclose if you're doing public advertising, you have to disclose. Other than that, no, nobody really cares except your broker and the state that you disclose.
All right. And her last question is, who pays the house insurance? Myself, if the title is still in my name, or the tenant buyer?
We've already answered all of that. Only the person who owns the house can pay for the insurance, can buy the insurance policy.
Got it. So when you lease option it, you're going to be still paying it, but of course you're going to collect enough to cover that amount.
When I lease it from the seller, I'm making a payment. Insurance is in it. When I'm putting a tenant buyer in there, they're paying me rent. Insurance is covered.
Yeah. I think she's owns it and she's leasing it out. So she's going to pay it.
She needs a non-owner occupant insurance policy on it, which is cheaper than an owner occupied policy because the contents are not insured.
Okay. Next question from Michael in Texas. Ron, in Texas, if you buy on subject to or wrap, but still want to be able to sell the property while being able to keep the ability to depreciate the asset, can we sell the property on a contract for deed since we can't lease option here?
You can sell it on a contract for deed, but you will not keep the depreciation. Okay. The minute you sell it, depreciation stops.
He goes on to say, after the attorney closes out my wrap purchase, when I find my end buyer I want to sell with a contract for deed, can that be done without an attorney, or does it need to be closed with an attorney, even though the title has not transferred yet? Okay,
so your buyer is cashing you out. You don't have to have an attorney if that's the case, but you better have a title company that's got some good sense, because it's going to be a little complicated if you haven't taken title yet. There's logistics there, and if I'm lease optioning it to a tenant buyer and I own it, it's easy. Okay. My entity just deeds it to them. But if I'm lease optioning it from the seller, my seller is going to deed it to my tenant buyer, and my proceeds are going to show on the closing statement as consulting or option fee. And if that's the case, you need to have a close conversations with your closing agent.
All right. And his last question is this considered long-term or short-term capital gains?
Well, you didn't tell me. Did I sell it within a year or not? If I sold it within a year, it's short-term.
Okay. Next question is from Phil in Ohio. Since using your VA service, your VAs have closed 152 leads with only 12 yes responses. That will take monthly payments. That seems like a low percentage of yes responses. Do you think it's because I limit the leads I send in to those in very good school districts, or because the market in the Cincinnati suburbs is a very hot one for sellers now, which it is, or is there another reason you might suggest?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to take a look at them, but honestly, if you are only in the hot school district, you're certainly going to get less yeses. The sellers know it. As far as Cincinnati, it's no hotter than any other area. So again, I always recommend that you go generate leads, especially anything that you can do to get sellers to call you and then send them to the VAs. You're going to get a lot more yeses when you do that. And again, we got a list that long we can do that with. In fact, my boot camp, I go through that entire list. It takes up the entire first afternoon, just going through ways to get these leads.
Right. And also those numbers are actually, I don't think that far off, because 152 closed leads, that doesn't mean they contacted 152 people. We reach about, I think it's 41%.
Oh, you know what? You're right. You're right. A closed lead means they're done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And they can only get about half of them on the telephone to begin with.
Right. About 41, 42% last I remember looking.
So you guys remember that 152 leads means only what? 60 of them they got on the telephone. So if they got 12 yeses out of 60, that's 20%. That's great, actually.
Yeah.
That's great. It's all about the math. Thank you for pointing that out.
Sure. All right. Next question is from Joseph in North Carolina. Do you recommend using a local title company or a national title company? Why or why not?
That doesn't make a bit of difference to me because I have attorneys close anyway. I don't care what title company you use.
Probably good to use a local attorney though, eh?
Yeah, I definitely want to use a local attorney. Well, if I'm buying, it's not necessary because we do it electronically, but it should be an attorney in that state.
Yeah.
And in fact, I can do the same when I'm selling because it's all virtual anyway.
Okay. All right, we're coming down the home stretch here. We've got Cecilia in Texas. Question one is, how do I execute a virtual meeting with a homeowner in our environment?
Okay. You get the homeowner to go video the house and send the videos to you.
Okay.
And by the way, I promise you, if you ask the homeowner, is it okay to come out and take a look? They're going to say yes. I mean, if you want to.
All right. Her second question is, if we do it virtually, how do we deliver contracts to the homeowners?
There's this thing called email. You email it to them. You do not email them a contract until after you have an oral agreement. Or I'm telling you, you just killed your deal. Only when you have an oral agreement can you fill out the contract. So when you agree on the numbers, you have to fill out the contract and email it to them. They sign it and send it back. That's all there is to it. If you want to go sign up for DocuSign, that even makes it easier for them. You just punch the buttons and the signature's right there.
Yeah, there's a few out there. We use a few of them. There's DocuSign's a good one. HelloSign is another good one. So there's some good services. They're all pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So
I'll use them all the time with these commercial deals.
All right. Next question is Armindo in Florida. When buying a house, either owner financing or subject to, and exit strategy is a lease option, can I use some of the money from the tenant buyer option fee to pay for the closing costs if same day?
Well, of course. It's your money. You can do whatever you want to do with it. You can just tell the closing agent to subtract the costs out of that. Well, wait a minute. What closing costs? I'm putting a tenant buyer in there. I don't have any closing costs.
I think maybe the closing costs for buying on the owner financing.
Okay, yeah. If you're buying, yes, you can do that on the same day. It's called a simultaneous closing.
Okay. All right. Next question is from Alan in Florida as well. Have you had problems when the person leasing is not able to pay?
Everyone that's ever put a tenant in a house has had a problem with somebody not paying it sooner or later. But you understand this. There's landlords and then there's lease option tenant buyers. In other words, here's a positive pole, here's a negative pole. Okay, they have nothing to do with each other. Somebody's going to give you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 is not going to be a problem for you. They're going to take care of the house. They're responsible for all the repairs. They are an owner-minded person, not a tenant-minded person. Somebody that's going to give you the first month's rent and can barely afford to move in, it's going to be a problem for you. Okay, so understand the difference between these two worlds because I've been in both of them. But even then, sometimes good people that have given you a bunch of money can't pay for whatever reason. And honestly, you're going to have to decide how you want to run your business. But in my business, if they don't pay, they don't stay. And I make that very, very clear up front. I'm not giving anybody free rent. As far as I'm concerned, that's them putting a gun in my ear and robbing me. They understand that up front. I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to try to be a little lenient with them, but there is no way they're going to stay in the house if they can't pay the rent. And they know it, and they know they're going to forfeit the option deposit as well. So I have had to move a few over the years, but usually on the lower end houses.
Okay. Tiffany from Pennsylvania. Where is the best place to find your real estate closing attorney?
Well, you can start with Google, put in there real estate closing attorney, and you pick up the phone and call them and ask them, are you a real estate closing attorney? And you just tell them, look, I buy with owner finance and I sell on lease purchases. Is that an issue? No. They say, well, we do it all the time. Then you probably found your real estate attorney. You do, however, want to make sure that you get a fee fixed. In other words, don't let an attorney charge you by the hour to close a real estate transaction. I pay $500 fixed fee no matter what kind of a house closing that I do.
All right. Also, referrals would be good. So from your real estate investors club, whatever's local there.
There's 6 of them on our website that I've trained on all day. I can't remember though. I don't know where they're at. New York, New Jersey, where are they at? I don't know. One in Florida. Just go on our website. You'll find 6 of them.
Yeah, there are a few there. If you can't find it there, then check out your local club or just call around. Use Google. If you have a phone book, maybe
Best way to find a good real estate attorney is ask a real estate investor that's active.
Mm-hmm. And you'll find those at your RIA club.
All RIA clubs have them in there. They're coming there just to get your business.
Yep. And you already covered what questions should you ask a real estate closing attorney to know if they're a good fit for closing your term deals.
Just tell them what you do. Yeah.
All right. We have a long series of questions here, but we're almost at the end here. Okay. So we've got, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Viraj maybe, in Nevada. When people say shareholders, what do they mean by that? What kind of company are they referring to?
It means the owners of it can be, if it's an LLC, they're called members. If it's a C Corp, they're called shareholders. Okay, it means they're the owners.
All right, so you covered what entity they're referring to as it relates to real estate. Next part of the question. I often get leads from Zillow, mid and high prices, and most leads are listed with realtors. Since our deals focus with terms, lease option, and seller financing, are these a waste of time?
Waste of time if they're listed with a realtor.
How do we turn realtor leads into deals?
We don't.
On how I did it virtual, I asked you about mortgage tools used in Las Vegas. You answered, you're not sure. And I should ask Joel because he's located in Vegas. How do I get in touch with him?
You contact our office and we will get you his contact number.
Okay. On Axe, over leverage deals, I own Pretty House Term System. When you said we stay in the middle, no longer assign or get out, can you please clarify on that?
That means you have bought the house and put a tenant buyer in it and not assigned your contract. So you're staying in the middle. Or you have lease optioned the house from the seller and then subleased it to the tenant buyer. You're still staying in the middle, which is where I'd prefer you to be because you're getting income every month and you're getting the benefits of owning real estate.
Yeah, and even if there's no spread, then there's still a chance that tenant buyer doesn't cash you out, and then you do have some spread later on.
Yeah, and hopefully the values go up.
Mm-hmm. All right. His next question is, how do you work out with seller to get Axe with stay in benefit to us?
What does that mean?
I think he's a little confused. You either have Axe or you stay in, not both.
No, that's one or the other.
Yeah.
Axe means you're getting out. You're just assigning your contract.
All right. On the land trust, and after seller agreed to sell the house, I want to be the beneficiary.
Okay.
Should I have the seller named as beneficiary directly, or he have to be the beneficiary first and assign the beneficial interest to me?
No. Frankly, I create the trust after I close. tell the attorney to use the warranty deed to trustee, but then we create the trust, put it on our filing cabinet after we close.
Looks like he's trying to do the same thing. Maybe try to avoid paying transfer tax and the due on sale clause.
Okay, you better get a legal opinion on that one. I can tell you it ain't going to avoid the due on sale clause. All it does is give you a tool to try to avoid it if they ever contacted you. I will tell you it's going to be extremely rare if the bank contacts you and wants to call a loan. In fact, they ain't going to contact you at all. You don't exist as far as they're concerned. They'll contact the seller. Seller might contact you, but they have no reason to if the payment's being made, even if they know it transferred. Banks do not want houses.
All right. He goes on about the avoiding transfer taxes and due on sale. All right. Next one is I don't have an LLC now, but when I do, how do I transfer to LLC later? Do I just assign the beneficial interest to the LLC?
No, there is no beneficial interest in an LLC.
I think it means how do I transfer the trust to the LLC? Do I make the beneficial interest of the trust to the LLC?
No, you do an assign. Yeah, you assign the beneficial interest of the trust to the LLC, but I'm not sure why you're doing all of that. Why don't you just do that? Make the LLC the beneficial interest to begin with.
Because he doesn't have the LLC now. He wants to create one later.
All right, got it.
All right. What is deed and title? What are the difference between them?
None. Well, the difference is United States or Canada. Canada, they call it a title, and the United States call it deed.
All right. When purchasing the house using seller financing, time has gone by, loan is paid off in full by the tenant buyers. To who will the bank issue the title or the deed?
Who will they issue the deed to?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, the bank's not issuing the deed. Bank has nothing to do with the deed. So the loan will be paid off. The bank will send the seller a satisfaction, and that's all the bank's going to do. The rest of it's done by the closing agent.
So it's not like buying a car.
No.
Where the bank holds on to the deed.
Correct.
All right.
Bank does not hold on to the deed. They just have a lien against the house called a mortgage or deed of trust.
Okay. He goes on, how will the bank know who to make the title out to? Not doing any of that. All right. Can down payment assistance program be applied to lease option purchase or owner financing only?
Either one, actually. But if you're applying it to owner financing, then it's probably going to be a lease purchase. In other words, I've done several where I've leased the property out to a tenant buyer and told them, once you pay me in X, I'll convert it to owner financing for you. And that X is at least 20% down. But once you sell it to them with owner financing, then it's going to be a lot harder for you to get them to pay you any more toward that down payment.
All right. And if you're doing owner financing, of course, then they've already made their down payment. There is no down payment assistance program, right?
Well, I can get them to pay some down now and some later. It's just hard to collect it once they already own the property. Okay. But if I've leased it to them, I got that to hold over the head. You're not going to own it till you pay in this full amount.
Right. All right. If we put the tenant buyer on the down payment assistance program and they do everything as agreed, the time comes, they cannot exercise the option. Do they lose the right to purchase?
No, not for me. I'll leave them in there as long as they want to stay, as long as they pay the rent.
Okay.
I've got a couple of houses been in there over 10 years. They haven't bought it yet. Their option expired, 9 years ago. So I don't care what they say.
If he chose not to let them exercise their option, can the buyer raise the issue and put us in a lawsuit?
Sure, any buyer can sue you for any reason. That's why we close with an attorney. Doesn't mean they're going to win. The deal was clear up front. They had a certain amount of time. They didn't take it. So it's all going to be the documents you have and the understanding. The contract is going to come down to what was the intent. And if it's clear what the intent was and clearly disclosed, you're probably going to win the case. But there's a million other things that could take place where you wouldn't win it. But honestly, I would not force anybody out of a house just because they can't buy it at the end of that term. That could create problems for you. And then you got to ask why. Why do I want to do that? Just leave them in there. Get that monthly cash flow, let the property grow in value, keep depreciating it, let the debt be paid down, and quit worrying about it. Go do another deal.
All right. Next question is from Desleen from Massachusetts. Please talk to us about maintaining the right mindset. How do you keep your head and mind in the game when it sometimes feels like the things aren't moving forward as quickly as you'd like them to?
Well, that's a good question, actually, because a lot of people have that issue. All right, number one, you got to stay active in your training. We let you come back for free. We give you all these free virtual things. You go stay active in that. Number two, you got to stay active in business. And things aren't going well in business. Dig deep. Ask yourself why. What is wrong? What's out of place? What's not working? Locating prospects, pre-screening them, construct and present offers, follow up, close quickly. Something's wrong. Am I not getting enough prospects? Well, then what am I going to do to fix that? Okay. Am I not getting any positive answers? The answer is you need practice fixing your call. You've got to get, by the way, there's lessons on that on the Gold Club as well. So you have to identify the problem and go to work fixing the problem. And think about it. What's your alternative? Go back to doing what you were doing and getting what you were getting. Business is not easy. I don't care what business it is. You've got to overcome hurdles. You've got to always fixing problems, always coming up with solutions. And, if you can't do that, then you're not ready to be an entrepreneur yet until you have the mindset that you always fixing problems. And what helps with that is a series of small successes. Get that first check. That first check is the most important check you're going to get in this business, because now at least your self-confidence has risen. And of course, cash flow as well.
Helps to hang around the right people too. If you're on
Absolutely.
Maybe can't assemble with people right now, but hang out on the Gold Club, participate in the forum, talk to people there, what they're doing. That helps out a lot.
Yeah, and just get back to some event. Once you paid for the first one, you come back for free anyway, for crying out loud. You should be there. I don't care if I do it 3-4 times a year.
All right. Her next question says, until I am able to set up an LLC, how should I structure my deals still using a land trust to take title?
Just take title and land trust and you'll be the beneficiary.
Okay. Would I sign the purchase and sale in my own name? And would I be the trustee of the beneficiary interest?
If you're not taking title in an LLC, you can always sign the agreement as whoever your trustee is as LLC. Trustee's name as LLC. But if you don't have an LLC, you're still using an individual up there. So.
All right.
LLC. Why don't you have an LLC? It's what, $150 or so? Go online, fill out the form, give them the $150. You got an LLC.
I received a yes lead on a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom home, 2,100 square feet in a great neighborhood in Massachusetts. The home was renovated in 2012 and needs only touch-up paint. There's no garage, just a driveway that fits 4 cars. That's the only drawback. Market value of the house is $830,000. I have access to the MLS and checked. The seller owes $620,000. Lowest he'll take is $760,000. He said he'd accept 0 down on owner financing. His monthly mortgage payment is $4,300, including PITI. He would consider allowing me to just take over that payment.
He wouldn't consider it. That's the only way I'd buy it.
Okay. Rentometer says 5,100 to 5,200.
I don't care what Rentometer says. It ain't never right anyway. All right.
All right.
So do you have a deal is the question. The answer is yes, but you want to get about 3 months before your first payment is due, unless you want to come out of pocket. Now, you got nice spread there. You got plenty of reason to do the deal because you get to raise the price on it a little bit as well. So my goodness, you got what, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 there that you will collect a good chunk of when you put the tenant buyer in the house. Plus you got a nice house, nice neighborhood, quality product. So the only hurdle you have to overcome is what happens if I don't get somebody in this house before that first payment is due. So you fix that problem, the rest is easy. But you should be able to do that if you get 2 or 3 months before yours starts.
Okay. She says, secondly, the seller promised to send a video of the house over the weekend, but did not and has not responded to me. What would you do?
Well, I don't know. You're going to have to keep at them, text them or whatever to get them to respond. I don't know. Maybe they changed their mind or whatever. I don't know. You're going to have to text them is the best way to contact them. Haven't received the video yet.
Okay. Next, she says, how can we locate attorneys in different states that close this way, apart from the attorneys you've listed on the Gold Club?
Same way you
covered that.
Same way you locate them in your state. Okay. You
Yeah,
ask
she says
other people.
she says she tried Googling and have emailed many attorneys, and most say they don't close this way.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, why don't you get on the telephone and call them and quit emailing them and quit asking them a bunch of questions that are totally irrelevant. My question is very simple. I'm looking for a real estate closing attorney. Are you one? Yes? Good. I buy with owner financing. I sell on lease purchase. Is that a problem? If it is a problem, you don't have the right attorney. Because if you get a real estate closing attorney, they do this all the time. It's not a problem for them. People have so much trouble. I've got about 5 deals under contract back here, and I have never had any trouble locating anybody that's any part of those deals. I start with the agent who brings me the deal, and I let them refer me to the attorney, and one of those two refers me to the engineer and everybody else in the deal. Just open your mouth and ask, and make a phone call, not an email.
All right. And her last question is, how do we go about finding boots on the ground if we decide to start buying houses in different states?
We already answered that question. You're just going to have to, you can always ask realtors to do it. They'll do it for a small amount of money. It's not about commission or anything, but again, run ads on Tackle or Craigslist or whatever. Go under gigs under Craigslist. Probably the easiest way. I need somebody to go take pictures of a house. You'll get responses.
All right, Ron, that was the last question, and we're right at 12 o'clock.
Okay. Well, boy, that worked out. Okay.
We did get 2 property information sheets. I don't know if you have time to look at them or if you just want to review them after, maybe.
I can't do that today. I don't know why those came in, but we will be doing that on the 11th, which actually isn't that far away now, is it?
It's not only 1 week.
Okay, well, let's save them for that.
Okay.
Make sure that the mentor gets to call them, and then if we get a hold of the people, we'll talk about them at that point. All right?
All right.
Okay, well, one more chance, guys, to get a hold of our office. The number's on the screen right in front of you if you want a real killer deal on mentoring and our Quick Start Real Estate School, virtual and live. You better get a hold of that number right now. It's only a few minute call, and they will guide you and let you know what the deals are, and then you can make a decision from there. Plus, they got plenty of financing available for you. So, are we done then?
Yeah, those are all the questions we received ahead of time. Like I said, we did get a lot of questions posted live here. But I mean, we just ran out of time. We had the perfect amount.
Okay. Well, we ought to do this again.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Now, of course, if you're a Gold Club member, you can always ask Ron your questions, and he answers them by video every week. We're actually going to post this on the weekly tomorrow, so that you guys can review it. So you'll get it on our weekly report. If you're not on our list, then you can go to ronlegrand.com and sign up there as a Gold Club member, and you can participate in those.
Yeah, I'll that's what I'll do. I'll answer them on the Friday, which is tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah. So this week we're using this one for tomorrow, and then we'll have more next week. I mean, we can't possibly get to all of these questions on the week report, and those are reserved for Gold Club members. Okay. All right. By the way, if you're not a Gold Club member, guys, that's the cheapest way I can possibly think of to enter this business. Go to ronsgoldclub.com. $59 a month, and there's no long-term commitment. So do that. At the very least, do that. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. It's been a fast 2 hours. At least it went by fast for me.
Yeah, it did go by fast. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, go register for February the 11th, folks. That's free. It's 5 hours of me going through exactly how we make money, and then an hour of it is on deal structuring. So did you say February? What did I say? You said February, I think. June 11th. Close enough. All right. All right. See you soon. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, John. Bye, guys. Bye.